Covering news that matters. Fox 23 News at 6:30 starts right now.
Thanks for joining me at 6:30. Tonight we're speaking with Oklahoma Republican U.S. Senator Markwayne Mullin, unedited in his own words, about preparing for the Trump administration. We do want to be transparent with you. We had a technical issue during the first part of this recording, but because of our commitment to bring you newsmakers unedited, we're going to pick it up mid-conversation. I just asked Mullin what President Trump will do next week about TikTok.
So our point is that we don't want to have the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, to have access to our media. That they shouldn't have any platform to spread their communist lies inside the United States. They're not our friends. So I don't know where it goes from here, but I do know the president is making a hard push to negotiate to find a situation, or the future President-elect Donald Trump is making a hard push to find a solution moving forward that can still allow the youth and the economic engines that's attached to TikTok to still be there, but at the same time get the CCP out, and they're not wanting to relinquish control. Why? Because they know they have access to a vulnerable group of people.
What is you were in DC for the first inauguration and now the second one. This one feels different, and the polls show there's a little more hope for this one. Do the polls reflect the feeling that people are going to give him a chance to lead this time?
I without question. The president and I have actually, President Trump and I have actually had this conversation about why we would love for him to be there in consecutive terms. The fact that there was a break in it actually allows him to have momentum, and he actually acknowledges that. He says, I do believe that this is much different than it would have been if I would have had consecutive terms, because people got 4 years of this woke DEI Biden administration. And it hasn't been good for anybody. You've seen inflation go through the roof. You've seen criminal activities run through the roof. You've seen an open border. Our stance around the world has been greatly diminished. You've seen wars happen because with the absence of a strong America that's not out there. And people want something different, because they were led down a box of lies that said that if we move this way, this is what's going to happen. Well, it didn't happen, and so now they want President Trump. And so you're seeing athletes come out for President Trump that wouldn't have come out in 21 or 2020 for him. You're seeing Hollywood elites that are coming out for him. You're seeing CEOs that are making a heavy investment with the United States and building relationships with the president, especially social media platforms. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg, that is one of them. That they are literally building a relationship with. Elon Musk, that is a very strong relationship with President Trump. I can go on with Jeff Bezos and move on down the road. These individuals, these CEOs, wasn't exactly there 4 years ago, but the American people also overwhelmingly elected President Trump. 312 million votes for him. I mean, that's crazy when you start thinking about the Electoral College and the popular vote that he won overwhelmingly. The American people are wanting change. They spoke loud, and so the protests that you saw, the riots that you saw, I'm telling you, zero of that has taken place in D.C. And I haven't seen any of it. And in 2017, it was an absolute mess here. I mean, they were preparing for riots. Riots took place. Vehicles are being burned. We were told at that time I was a representative, and we were told to stay in our offices, not leave the Hill. If you do, take your plate off your vehicle. Don't wear your pin. Don't wear a suit. I mean, this went on for weeks that way. We were told not to eat out in the public. If you do, don't have your pin on. There is none of that taking place now. None of it. You're not seeing Seattle on fire. You're not seeing the riots in L.A. You're not seeing the riots in New York and in Philadelphia. People want change because of the disastrous administration we have underneath the Biden presidency.
Since you were in the House, I'd love your thoughts on this. I've talked to Congressman Hernan Burkeen about this. There is legitimate fear that one or two people, because the majority is so thin, could really mess up this moment. What do you say to those folks who are kind of nervous that two people really could screw up this momentum?
Well, it's true. We had the same issue that we had in the Senate too, right? We're only at 53-seat majority here, so you could easily have a few outliers that run. You could still have that same. There's always the Adam Kinzinger and the Liz Cheneys of the world that can always decide that that they want to go their own separate way. I mean, that's the accountability happens in their own district. The accountability happened in Adam Kinzinger's district in Illinois, and it happened in Wyoming for Liz Cheney. So, but that you can't do anything because now they're in office. It only takes a couple. There's already a big. Let's just talk about the taxes right now. That's got to originate, right? The reconciliation can come out of both chamber. The budget has to come out of the House, but once the budget is hit, then the reconciliation package can come out of the Senate or the House. But reconciliation with taxes cannot. Taxes have to originate out of the House. So I'll just use someone that's deemed as a very strong conservative voice, Chip Roy out of Texas. However, Chip Roy is openly saying he wants to offset SALT, which is a tax on property that is really mainly just for blue states. I mean, if you really get serious about it, property tax is much higher in blue states. And so it mainly affects blue states, but specifically New York, which has ridiculously high property tax. He's want to offset it by raising corporate tax rates. Well, that's a conservative saying that he wants to raise corporate tax rates. That's an almost an impossible move, because not even the people that live in New York that want to see SALT brought back so they can have more of a write-off of their property taxes, even are in agreement that they want to raise corporate tax rates. So the juggling to be able to get something done is in the negotiation that's going to take place. Some people will call it compromise. No one's trying to compromise their values. We're trying to negotiate to get a bill that is going to be less than perfect, but maybe the American people will demand it to be. And when you become less than perfect, then you start pulling people off, because people in Oklahoma may be upset about this, but this portion of the bill they like, but they're only focusing on this portion of the bill. And this is where negotiations are going to be very important. That's where, with a small majority like we have in the House and a small majority that we have in the Senate, this is where negotiations like a business is going to have to take an effect. Okay, you want 110%. That's probably not going to be achievable, because you got to still deal with these outlier of individuals. So what will you accept? I tell people all the time, I go into every negotiating deal wanting 110%. I'll walk away at 69%, and I will accept 70%. Well, your constituents, though, may be really, really, really upset about that 30% that you had to negotiate away. But negotiating away 30% is and getting 70% of what's good, moving us away from the Biden economics back towards Trump economics, is a lot better than staying put in the current situation we have. And so in this case, perfection is going to be the goal, but we can't allow perfection to become the enemy of good.
Do I have time for one more?
Sure.
Just being from Oklahoma, how fast do you think Drill Baby Drill is going to kick in? And one concern I have that no one seems to answer, we haven't built a refinery in this country in decades. Does Drill Baby Drill include a new refinery? Because I was listening to Doug Burgum talk. We do have modern technology to do this cleaner and better. So how fast do you think Drill Baby Drill is going to happen, and do you know anything about a new refinery for this country?
Well, I will tell you the regulations that was put in place through executive orders, not through legislation, but through executive orders. They're going to be overturned day one. President Trump has already said that that's going to be part of his 100 executive orders he rolls out with national security, border security, and energy. That'll be part of that package. However, the industry has got to take a time if they're willing to invest, because they also realize that this could only be a 4-year run, and everything that they do could be reversed. So it's important to have legislation then to back up the executive orders to make it permanent, because most investments in oil and gas isn't paid back in 4 years because there's a lot of infrastructure that takes place. There's long-term investments that take place in that. So it could take a little bit to start seeing the results. So you'll start seeing, I think, energy costs come down fairly quick. I say you start seeing energy costs come down maybe by this summer. because you are going to see more things come online. There's some things that can take place immediately. For instance, pipelines. Pipelines right now at best can only run at about 80% capacity because of some rules that the Biden administration put in place, which because of the lack of capacity, it brings up energy cost. Well, when the president says that those pipelines can be used to their fullest capacity, that you're going to see at minimum a 20% increase in pipeline capacity. But in some of these pipelines, because they base it off years, even though they have to recertify all the time, that they're still able to use the flow rate that they were permitted for, because of the way they scaled these things back, trying to force pipelines out of business because they're against all oil and gas infrastructure as a whole. Some of these pipelines are only operating at 50%. So you can see an increase of 50% in some of these things. So you're going to see capacity increase to be able to get to the product faster. Now, talking about refineries specifically, refineries, it takes a while to stand those up. Most people will say that the refinery capacity that we have is fine. We just got to retool it for the sweet crude that fracking is now bringing into the refineries. A lot of these refineries are still designed for heavy crude, because we still have, regardless that the Keystone Pipeline was canceled or not, that's considered a heavy crude. We still refine a lot of products from from Canada. We also refine a lot of products from overseas out of OPEC that our refineries have long-term contracts with. And as those contracts expire, then we can retool, what they call retool these refineries and bring them to the modern technology. We also have to have the pipeline capacity to be able to feed those refineries, and that takes permitting. So once, it's not just easy as just throwing up a refinery, it's also throwing up a refinery with a process. So one place that would be a really good place for a big refinery to go into would be Cushing, right? Cushing is the crossroads of pipelines of the United States. And yet we don't have a refinery there. There's been talks about it. Listen, you have it there. That'd be a good place to do it, but it's the reason why a lot of your refineries now are on the coast, because we export a lot of stuff out. So that's just going to be for international, not capacity, but not really help the export side of it. So there's a lot of stuff there. Refineries do need to be built, but it's not. I don't think that's going to be the huge focus, because we have capacity right now. We're not lacking capacity in the refineries.
I want to clarify something real quick before we go. Is Keystone XL coming back?
I don't. I think the president would like to. The company that was in charge of that, they went through a lot of financial hardships, so I don't think it can come back. But who knows? I know the president would love to. It just takes those individuals they want to go through that process again. And I think investors may be a little scared of that.